Are you having a good day? Have you considered not doing that? Are you playing Minecraft in a cave looking for diamonds? That's actually pretty funny. Why? Well, let's get into it. Today, we're learning about the wonderful internet subculture known as lolicons. What's a lolicon? I'm so glad you asked. Lolicon is an English term which means an individual who is attracted to young or young looking females, and it doesn't directly translate to any English word. So, where does this word come from etymologically? Well, our story begins with pain, which is, coincidentally, also where it ends. Well, technically, it begins with the Proto Indo European root del, which means to split, the same root that ultimately led to the English tel and the name of the Greek figure Daedalus. This was received into the Latin and later Spanish dolor, meaning pain, and as Mary, the mother of Jesus, gained the epitaph Our Lady of Sorrows, Dolores became a popular name in Spanish, Portuguese, English, and Tagalog. Dolores was then made into the diminutive Lola, the name of the sexy rabbit from Space Jam, and Lola was then further diminished into the name Lolita. But Zinniop, you ask, how does this end up meaning pet? What it means today? Well, for that we need to bring in a second name. That, of course, being Vladimir Nabokov. He's a Russian author living in the United States, and he hears on the news about a monkey in some zoo in France who became the first animal to ever make art. What did he draw? Well, he drew the bars of his own enclosure. I'm sure that origin bodes well for the common interpretation of the novel. Anyway, he gets to thinking about innocent minds being trapped in a situation beyond their understanding, and he formulates an idea for a book. Our title character, Lolita, is the 12-year-old daughter of Charlotte Hayes, and our POV character, her love interest, is a middle aged man named Humbert. Anyway, long story short, Humbert is a kid, he falls in love, the girl he falls in love with dies young, so he never sexually matures beyond that stage. Freud strikes again. Anyway, he comes to America and meets a widow who needs someone to take care of her. He doesn't much care for her, but he falls in love with her daughter, and when she proposes to him, he accepts, but only to get closer to our 12-year-old daughter. Anyway, the mom finds out and tries to flee and warn her friends, but she gets hit by a car before she can, leaving Humbert alone with the kid. Oh no! Humbert lies to the kid, saying her mother fell ill, and then, Wikipedia uses the terms takes her to a high end hotel, tricks her into taking a sedative, and initiates sexual contact. But I'm not Wikipedia, so I don't have to split hairs about this. He abducts, drugs, and rapes her. I should say attempts to drug and rape. Fortunately, the drugs he bought were bad, and he chickens out. In the morning, she confides to him that she was the victim of sexual assault, which he responds to by, you guessed it, sexually assaulting her. I will remind you that I am only joking about this with the knowledge that it is a fictional novel. Anyway, yeah, then he drops the bombshell that her mom died. They go on a road trip, he enrolls her in an all girls school, and then he proceeds to be both an abusive parent and an abusive partner. Ladies, get you a man who can do both. Anyway, she runs away from home. Humbert recaptures her. They go on another road trip where she falls ill and gets taken by an unknown character. And Humbert looks for her abductor. Humbert, that's you! Anyway, the book finally comes to a head when Humbert receives a letter from Lolita, who is 17 years old, married, pregnant, and in desperate need of money. Humbert tracks her down, despite her protestations, but what does consent mean to this guy, anyways? She tells him that she was rescued from the hospital by the playwright of a play she was supposed to be in. That was sort of a plot point around when she tried to run away the first time. Anyway, she lived with him until, big shocker, he wanted her to do porn. Then she left and ultimately found her husband, and Humbert chooses this time to drop the absolute bombshell.
Hold on. Actually, this whole time I was in love with her.
Somebody better call Walking Wake because I'm about to commit suicune. He tries to persuade her to leave with him. She refuses, and shockingly, he respects her wishes, going over to the playwright's house and shooting him dead. Then finally, mercifully, he's taken away by the police. But Lolita itself is only half the story. We have to tell the audience's response to it. Well, first off, it was a huge hit. Nabokov himself was finally able to support his career as an author, so yay for him. But people really misunderstood the book. It was taken as an erotic novel where the character was meant to be sexualized, the 12-year-old girl character. I will concede that I am probably misrepresenting this book. The novel really is a work of art that has as many possible interpretations as there are people who have read it. But my interpretation is that it's meant to be a satire on erotic novels. Like, what if I made a sappy erotic romance novel? But instead of being between two adults, I made it about a 40-year-old having sex with a kid. Also, something a lot of people miss is that Humbert is an unreliable narrator. When Lolita is being precociously seductive, you're not seeing that happen. You're seeing Humbert say that happened. Essentially, a child rapist is just telling you, yeah, the child was totally asking for it and gave consent, and you've just said, yeah, I believe him. If it was satire, then it went completely over people's heads. In America, a new phrase was coined, Lolita complex. In the same vein as an Oedipus complex, someone with a Lolita complex is a young girl with an interest in sexuality very mature for her age. I mean, but surely, understanding the taboo on child porn, no one would be crazy enough to actually make porn centered around that concept. It's a good thing that in the 1950s there wasn't a foreign country under America's cultural sphere of influence, but with its own series of taboos and unspoken cultural rules. Ah, hello, Japan. With its own expected morals meshed with a prescribed set of morals from overseas, Japan has always been a hotbed of weird porn, and they practically invented the modern concept of a Lolita complex. Obviously, it was portmanteaued and abbreviated into just lolicom, but Japanese's phonology doesn't allow for the letter M, except for when it's before a P or B, so lolicon, and Japan never takes the L, so roricon. A mixture of mistranslation and semantic shift egged on by the related term shotakon, meaning a woman who's attracted to younger boys, which is somehow less taboo because we do, in fact, live in a society, pushed lolicon from meaning a young girl with a Lolita complex to referring to the porn genre as a whole, which is then misunderstood to meaning the sort of man who is attracted to those girls, while loli on its own has assumed the meaning formerly assigned to lolicon. So, what's the conclusion here? Here's my takeaway. If you go on anime circles on the internet, you'll find many lolicons, claiming that being a lolicon is not the same thing as being a pedophile. These people are wrong. And let me explain. The biggest argument is that even though they are attracted to minors, they aren't acting physically on those desires, which means that there's nothing wrong with it. Here's my counterpoint. We all have urges, intrusive thoughts, things that just pop into our minds, and we can't control their comings. Your average person, like me, pushes those thoughts away. A lolicon lets those thoughts take hold. They allow themselves to entertain and then become convinced of the idea that young girls are attractive. And then there is a third stage, people who act on those thoughts. The morally correct thing to do is the first box. The legally correct thing to do is the first two boxes. Lolicons reject the term pedophile because its connotation is the last box, but its dictionary definition is any adult who's sexually attracted to children. Now, I don't think we should be able to regulate people's thoughts or what they do by themselves that isn't hurting anyone else, but if you belong to either of the last two boxes, you are a pedophile, and that connotation is just something you're gonna have to live with. Anyway, this video is sponsored by me not wanting to make a joke here. Sorry if this video was poorly researched. I didn't want to end up on a government watch list.